Hey, what's up? It's Justin with NRN, the No Bull Racing Network, and thank you for joining me for the recap. We had a lot of racing this weekend, including the WEC getting their super season kicked off, as well as IMSA and the WeatherTech Championship racing out in Mid-Ohio, and of course it was the Monster Mile from Dover. And we'll start there in Dover for just a little bit. The race was about like you would expect from a Dover race. It wasn't that exciting. I felt like it lacked some excitement in this Dover race, and the passing wasn't there. It was very difficult to pass. That's just part of the character of the racetrack. I did like the multiple grooves. There was more grooves and some side-by-side racing, but just not a whole lot of passing going on. Ford dominated the whole thing, and not just Ford in general, but Kevin Harvick's Ford more specifically. Led all the practice sessions, was fast in qualifying. And when Kyle Larson, he actually got the pole, but he wasn't able to start from the pole because he failed technical inspection this morning before the race began. Along with Alex Bowman in the 88, both of those cars had to go to the back of the pack, and it would be racing towards the front for both of those guys. So that would pretty much give Kevin Harvick the pole there, and he took off. He absolutely took off. He and Brad Keselowski in that first stage. I thought Brad had maybe the best car for him. Maybe the only car out there that had anything for that four was Brad Keselowski in that first stage. Martin Truex Jr. was pretty stagnant. He was up there running in the top five, but he just could not seem to get his car to go anywhere past that. He even said at the end of the race, when he would catch somebody, he just would stall out and he wouldn't be able to pass. Again, Dover was just extremely hard to pass today. And then you had Kyle Busch, who, when he started the race, he automatically felt a vibration in that car. They kind of wanted to run it out because it was literally only like 10 to 12 laps into the race when this problem arose in that 18 car. So he kind of wanted to run the day out, just see how things went. And it did eventually get worse. But at the end of stage one, Kevin Harvick would win that stage. And then he'd pretty much go on to dominate again in stage two. Keselowski was able to lead the majority of laps in stage two, but eventually Kevin Harvick was able to make that pass on him. And once he made that pass on him, you saw just how quick Kevin Harvick's car was over Keselowski's, because Keselowski was keeping him behind him, but again, it was so hard to pass, so you just kind of felt like they were really evenly matched. But I tell you what, once that four car caught that clean air, he just drove absolutely away from Brad Keselowski, and you could just see, oh my gosh, the four car is at it again. And he would go on and win stage four. Stage three, Kyle Busch, that problem, it was a drivetrain that broke on that car. That's what it was. It would eventually give up. That would put him out of the race in that one. Clint Bowyer actually had a little bit of a moment there. He got up towards the front and was able to start leading the laps, and then the rain came out. There was a bunch of pit strategy going on. Stenhouse and McMurray on the front row, they didn't take any tires at all. The two Penske cars of Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski took two tires, which I did not agree with. I just did not feel like that was a good call to make. I'm thinking that every time you come into the pits, you pretty much have to go with four tires, but the two Penske cars. And you know, Penske Racing, Paul Wolfe, he is known for making some pretty drastic calls and doing some different things, but I just don't know if I was 100% on board with that. Anyway, they get the two tires. That jumbles up the field. Clint Bowyer able to get up there and get around Stenhouse. Stenhouse actually took off there for a little bit. The no tire call looked like it was working for just a little bit, maybe 10 to 15 laps, but eventually Clint Bowyer would get up there. Clint Bowyer would get the lead, and then it would start to rain, and I was kind of thinking, holy crap, Mother Nature's going to do Clint Bowyer a favor again. So they had about a 45-minute red flag there. They would get back to racing, but for a while there, I thought, dang, Clint Bowyer's going to come out of this with another win. But when they got back to racing, he would stay ahead of his teammate for only a little bit. Kevin Harvick would take the lead with about 70 to 60 laps to go, somewhere in that ballpark. And then Kevin Harvick would straight up lead the rest of the way. And Kevin Harvick would sweep all the stages just like he did in Vegas. And it was a solid day for the Ford car. It was actually a solid day for Stewart-Haas Racing in general. All of those Stewart-Haas cars were running right up there in the top in contention all day long. That last pit stop, though, was a big disappointment for Team Penske because Brad Keselowski had a very slow stop that put him way back in the pack, and he was not able to recover from that. So I think he'd wind up with a top 10, but not a shot at the win, and not in contention there in the last bit of the stage. And Joey Logano also had to come back to pit road because they were not able to get the lug nuts tight enough on that tire, so you had to come in and have that tightened, and I don't think he finished in the top 10 today. So disappointing for those two Penske cars that ran up front for the majority of the race, just would not have solid days, and Dover continues to be one of Joey Logano's worst racetracks. But I tell you what, Jimmie Johnson actually had a pretty decent day for Jimmie Johnson's 2018 season. You know, it wasn't so bad, and Dover is his best place. I think he's won there more than any active driver. He's won there 11 times, which is just incredible when you think about that he's won there 11 times in his career. So, you know, you kind of thought that this was going to be the place where maybe he could have a solid run. Maybe it was a good area for the team to build some confidence. I actually included him on my fantasy picks this week. I just felt like Jimmie Johnson was going to have a good day. And Jimmie Johnson did. He ran in the top 5 for a little bit and then ran in the top 10. So Jimmie Johnson showed some progress at one of his favorite tracks. And Hendrick Motorsports overall did pretty well because Chase Elliott had a pretty solid day running in the top 10. Until this race, he had finished in the top 5 every time he had run at Dover. Of course, he was not able to finish in the top 5 today. But let's go ahead and take a look at the top 20 finishers from Dover in this race this afternoon. Kevin Harvick would pick up his 4th win of 2018, and he is the first driver to get to 4 wins this year. He wins both Stage 1 and Stage 2, which I got max points for that in my fantasy this week because I picked Kevin Harvick to win the race, and I picked Kevin Harvick to win all the stages, and I picked Ford to win. So I got all my bonus points for the week. Clint Bowyer, his teammate at Stewart-Haas Racing, he would finish 2nd. Great run for Clint Bowyer. Daniel Suarez gets his best finish on an oval racetrack of 3rd place for Joe Gibbs Racing. Great solid day for Daniel Suarez. Martin Truex Jr. would be very frustrated with his performance, yet he would still come away with a 4th place finish. And who knows, at the end of the season, when he's standing there needing those valuable points for the championship, maybe a race like this will start to make sense. Kurt Busch overcame a lot of adversity today. He really struggled through most of this race, but he was able to come away with a top 5. So 3 of the 4 Stewart-Haas race cars in the top 5. Brad Keselowski would finish 6th after leading towards the end of both the stages and being in contention. That last pit stop that was so poor really cost him big. He'd finish 6th. Denny Hamlin would finish 7th. Ryan Blaney would have a good day in 8th. Jimmie Johnson, as I said earlier, had a really solid day. He would come home 9th. And Kyle Larson, our pole sitter, who had to go to the back and at one point was 2 laps down, then he was a lap down, finally got back on the lead lap. He would battle back to a 10th place finish. And Eric Almirola, the last Stewart-Haas racing car, would finish 11th. Chase Elliott would be 12th. Joey Logano 13th. He had to come in and have that loose wheel situated there in that last pit stop, so that cost him big. William Byron, the rookie, solid day for him, 14th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. got to lead some laps today. He would come home 15th. Jamie McMurray would be 16th. Casey Kane with a solid day for Levine Family Racing. They'd finish 17th. Eric Jones would be 18th. Trevor Bayne 19th. And Chris Buescher would finish 20th. That is the top 20 finishers from the Monster Mile today and this afternoon. So Kevin Harvick picks up his 4th win of the year and becomes the first driver to win 4 wins this season and continues to be a dominating force to deal with. Now I want to turn my attention to overseas at the WEC. The World Endurance Championship got its super season kicked off Saturday with a race at Spa. And Fernando Alonso in Toyota was able to come away with the win in their number 8 LMP1 car. They would get the overall win. Sebastian Buemi on that team as well as Nakajima. So all 3 of those drivers, Fernando Alonso picking up that win, did a very good job driving that car. They would have the overall win, and they ran 163 laps in that one to get that win at Spa. So Alonso would finish first. He's going to be running in the 24 Hours of Le Mans, trying to win that one, trying to do what Dan Gurney did back in the day. Their Toyota racing teammate would finish 2nd, and Rebellion Racing Rebellion's LMP1 car would finish in third, 2 laps behind. In LMP2, the number 26 Orica would pick up the win, the G-Drive Racing car. They would get the win. Jackie Chan, DC Racing would finish second in that class. And Signatech would finish third in the class, 9th overall. That was 7th, 8th, and 9th. And LMP2, the Ford Chip Ganassi Ford GTs would pick up the win. They would finish 14th overall, 15 laps behind. And Porsche would finish in second, with Ferrari finishing third in that class. And then in GTEM, Aston Martin Racing would get the season kicked off with the win. TF Sport would finish in second in class, and Clearwater Racing would finish third. That would be 22nd, 23rd, and 24th overall in that one. Great start to the season. Those are your winners, and I'm looking forward to what Fernando Alonso can do. It's good to see him getting a win, because you haven't seen him win in a while in Formula One. So it's good to see Fernando Alonso back in victory lane. And then, of course, the Mid-Ohio WeatherTech Racing from IMSA. That was pretty good. About a 3-hour race is what we had there. And it was an all-battle up front between Team Penske, Acura, and Mazda. The two teams that you kept waiting to see break out. And you just wondered, when are these two teams going to get to racing form and winning form? Well, it was this weekend. You know, Team Penske Acura, they had several races. Sebring comes to mind, Daytona comes to mind, where they were out front looking strong, and then they had problems that took them out of the race. This week, they were right there on the pole. They led the majority of the way, pretty much all the way, really. And it would be that number 7 Penske car with Taylor and Helio Castroneves on board. One of the Taylors, Ricky Taylor, finally getting a win for the Taylor brothers since that split happened with the number 10 Cadillac. But Helio Castroneves also getting his first sports car win here in the category, the top prototype category for Team Penske. They would win over Mazda. Mazda was looking really good too. Like I said, nobody else really had anything for the field. You know, Mazda started out, what a disaster it was at Daytona, and you wondered, oh my gosh, is this whole season going to be this way for Team Mazda, in Jost? Is this going to be a disaster that we're going to get to watch? But no, they've really, every week that they've run one of these races, they have really turned it around. And at Ohio, it was Acura and Mazda all the way. But, of course, Acura would pick up that win. In GT Le Mans class, it would be Porsche getting the win. Porsche is the only manufacturer in that class to win another race this year. BMW is the only manufacturer not to win a race. But the Ford GTs were right there. They finished third, and BMW split them, finishing second in that class. The Ford started towards the back, and they worked hard all day long to finally get up there on the podium. But I tell you what, the best race at the end was GTD. Lexus was searching for their first win, and they had a dominant car, just taking off from the field, leading the entire way. But right there at the end, on the final lap, the new Alliance Meyer-Shank Racing, that number 86 Acura with Catherine Legg in it, they were able to get that car up right behind the Lexus, and they had a battle, one heck of a battle on the final lap, but it would be the Lexus just pulling out ahead of the Meyer-Shank Racing Acura, and Lexus would pick up their first career win, Ohio, in IMSA sports car racing. So congratulations to Lexus. That was the car, by the way, that Scott Pruitt retired from, and in fact, Catherine Legg drove that car last year. And here they are this year getting a win over Meyer-Shank Racing. But it was a pretty decent race. It was much like Dover. It was a very, you know how Ohio is. It's very difficult. But it was good to see IMSA back. It's been 5 years since IMSA had run a race there. And I thought it was a pretty good race. And Team Penske picking up their first win of the season in that brand new Acura in the prototype class. So great weekend of racing. Again, Dover. But I didn't really think it was that good. Kevin Harvick dominates the race. He gets his 4th career win. We look to Kansas. It's going to be a Saturday night racing under lights from Kansas when we join NASCAR next. Thank you so much for watching. And by the way, the next time we see the WEC cars in action is going to be the 24 Hours of Le Mans. How exciting is that, knowing that Le Mans is just around the corner? Lots of good racing just around the corner, actually. You got the Indy 500 coming up, the Coke 600, Monaco, Le Mans, lots of good stuff to look forward to. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Justin with NRN, the No Bull Racing Network, and I will see you next Saturday night after Kansas. Take it easy.